and we're off. So we're all at the right event, I guess is the right point, okay? So I'm going to spend the next, we're already 10 minutes over, I'm going to spend the next hour and a bit just setting the scene, doing some introductions to the product, showing you a few little demos to wet your whistles, to let you, to want to stay for the rest of the 2 days. That kind of makes sense? Phones off, if you've got phones on, or set to stun, I guess is the point, and off we go. So we launched Windows Server 2012. So I'm Dave Northey from Microsoft in Ireland. Most of you know me by now. It's a weird accent, although it sounds a bit Australian or English, whatever it is. It's 17 years of Wicklow, so I live in Greystones, okay? We launched this in September of last year. We actually RTM'd in August, and we launched in September. And when we launched about this concept of the Cloud OS. And it kind of spoke to the fact that what the Windows Server development team did was they stopped developing for about a year. Then when I spoke to customers about what you're trying to do, what challenges have you got, and they spoke to us, internal IT. So Microsoft, you can probably know this, we run massive data centers. There's one, get my bearings right, where's west over that way? There's one about 9 miles over there with thousands and thousands and thousands of physical machines in it, running probably millions of virtual operating systems. We know how to do stuff at scale, and we did commit a while ago to say that everything we did as far as development was concerned, we would do in the cloud first, and then we'd do it on-premise afterwards, if that makes sense. So everything we've learned around doing massive scale compute has been baked into Windows Server 2012. That's the point behind the Cloud OS. So there's definitely some symmetry between what we can do on-premise, what we can do when we work with a service provider, and what we do when you can connect to our cloud. So our cloud is things like Windows Azure, Office 365. The list is about 200 products long. I've run out of 2, so there you go. You get the idea. It's big, complicated. So that's kind of the idea behind our Cloud OS. It's where do you want to run your workload today? Is something I'm trying to coin that phrase, but it'll never catch on. But these things around the outside are the enablers for that, okay? So it's the same virtualization stack, Hyper-V, whether you're on-premise with a service provider or in Azure. Azure is just Hyper-V, okay? And I'll talk to some of the bits that make that nice in a while. As far as identity is concerned, Active Directory Federation Services, Azure Active Directory, Office 365 credentials, all joined together, linked up nicely, so you authenticate against your infrastructure, and it doesn't matter where your workload is, you're going to go off and access it. As far as development tools are concerned, our development stack's the same. So it's a choice you make. You develop it with Visual Studio, you decide to publish it to Azure, you decide to publish it to on-premise, you decide to publish to a service provider. Kind of irrelevant. DevOps and management, all of our system center tools will manage all of that regardless of where your workload's running. And as far as data is concerned, it's data, it's SQL Server, it's whatever, okay, it's fine. That enables that. We're probably the only provider out there, the only IT provider that can do the whole shoot and match. So if you want to use that cloud word, which is probably well overused, we do public cloud, private cloud, hybrid clouds, build it all together. Where do you want to run your workload today? Bob's your uncle, and that's kind of what we can enable, okay? So I know it's a pun intended, a very fluffy term, the Cloud OS. We can do it, okay? We can do the whole shoot and match. This is definitely a marketing slide, but I'll talk to it quickly, okay? So when we launched in September, this was the terminology we used, or the way we framed the product. So Windows Server 2012's got something like 300 or 400 new or improved features in it, which would just read like a big long list of bells and whistles, and mine's bigger than yours, and it would just be nonsensical. So to make it make sense to an audience in a room full of people when we launch, we normally launch to sort of CIOs and IT managers and business decision makers rather than technical so much. We need to try and make it make sense at that level. So we took those 300 or 400 features and put them into those buckets, okay? And the buckets are the power of many servers, the simplicity of one, which just talks to how do you manage 1 server or 10 servers or 100 servers or 1,000 servers or 10,000 servers or 1,000,000 servers with the same tools. What tool sets are you going to use? How are you going to automate stuff? How are you going to do it? How do you make one server as resilient as you can without having to go off and buy failover clusters and do weird things like that? How do you do DR? How do you keep stuff up and running? So some noddy little features in there if you like, but they're very, very powerful, and we'll talk to all of them as we go through. Every app in any cloud just spoke to the development side of the house. So if you're a developer, any developers in the room? No, we're all IT professionals. That's good. I can briefly go through this one. Just spoke to the fact you develop your app once, you publish it to whichever cloud you fancy publishing it to, and that's it really. Lots of messages around open source and open standards and all sorts of stuff like that. Beyond virtualization, just spoke to the facts, and I'll put that down and do this because I always think this is funny. It's virtualization. So who is the lead player out there at the moment? Okay. I won't name them yet because it's on video, but they're that good, okay? The people who own the virtualization space, and he said it, are that good, okay? When we came into the virtualization space in 2003, when we bought Connectix, when we bought our product called Virtual PC in 2004 and Virtual Server in 2005, we were that good, okay? And I'm deliberately going real low because we weren't very good at all. We were scratching the surface. And over the years, so Virtual Server 2005, Virtual Server 2005 SP1, Hyper-V in Windows Server 2008, Hyper-V in Server 2008 R2, Hyper-V in 2008 R2 SP1, the features and functionality just got closer and closer and closer to the competition. Obviously, they were going up as well, but I would suggest that before we launched this product, we were that good, okay? And I've left that much of a gap deliberately, okay? For the majority of the workloads you ever wanted to run, certainly in Ireland, but worldwide as well, and the majority of the workloads you wanted to run, you could do it all with the Windows product. And if you wanted the extra bell or whistle, that difference, you bought it. And I'm deliberately calling this out, you bought it. If you're virtualizing Windows and you've licensed yourself correctly, you've probably gone off and bought Enterprise Edition Windows Server 2008 R2 or Data Center, and you've assigned those licenses to the physical boxes, whatever virtualization stack you're running, okay? And my point is, if you've licensed your Windows stuff properly, you've got the Windows features, you've got Hyper-V, you've got failover clustering, you've got all the bells and whistles that are in this product. So which begs the question, why did you spend the money for that bell or that whistle, okay? That was before we launched this. When we launched Server 2012, we actually did that. We completely leapfrogged the competition with regard bells and whistles. And if you've noticed, they've spent the last 6-7 months nearly now playing catch up with us, which is quite funny for someone who came in at really the underdog, and now we're technically the leader, and they're playing catch up. And interestingly, when they go off and buy these people to fill that gap, it just gives them another nightmare of having to get another product integrated into their product set. It's kind of amusing, it would be stretching it a bit far, but it's nice to watch people catch up with us. So a good example was we introduced, I'll talk to it later on, we introduced something called Shared Nothing Live Migration. The ability to take a virtual machine from that box and run it on that box with no requirement for SANs or anything. And they bought that out about 2 weeks after we did, because they thought, shit, Microsoft are doing some good stuff. We better catch up. So it's fun to watch. I imagine we'll end up doing this for the next while. We'll continue to be leapfrogging each other with regard to technology. But that was what virtualization meant. It meant massive scale, automation, do what you like, with any workload on that. I'm not going to steal too many people's thunder, but there's nothing you can't run on that, okay? There's bound to be something you can't run on that, but I'm going to say nothing, okay? And the modern work style enabled piece kind of spoke to this consumerization of IT. So bring your own device, lock in all your access controls down so that your data doesn't leak out and get found in the back of a taxi and you read about yourself on the 9 o'clock news tonight, that kind of idea. It's how do you do consumerization of IT properly? So they were the big messages, and we went off and spoke to lots of business messages around how all that worked, and that was grand, and we launched it well. As an observation of Microsoft, if you attend the launch of a product, you know what products we've got out there and you know what feature set we've got. And if you didn't attend the launch, you probably don't, which is bad on our part, okay? So we're just not getting the message out there that we've got products out there that do stuff. I always get it. I talk to customers and I mention a product and they go, I didn't know you did one of them. And I go, yeah, we've been doing that for like 5 years, for God's sake. Did you not know that? And it's the same with Windows Server 2012. You just mention in a conversation that a feature that's in here somewhere. And they go, oh, I didn't know you did that. And I go, yeah, we launched that in Server 2012 back in 2012 September. And go, oh, interesting, didn't know that was there. Which is why we've been running around the countryside running all these Server 2012 sort of, almost like a relaunch if you want. This is our attempt to get 2 days worth of really good content out there, videoed ideally, so hopefully the video works and we can watch this online, and we'll all be able to, go back to the office and tell your boss that that's why we need to implement Server 2012. Okay. I didn't mean to do that. Apologies. So So there's carrots and sticks in this world, okay? Here's a stick for you. Okay, who knew that? Who's running server 2003? So it's probably half you. The worldwide number is, I think, 57% of the servers in the world are running 2003. I believe in Ireland we've just dipped below 50. So about half the servers on this island are running 2003. And it runs out. So all our products, we do 10 years of support. We do 5 years of mainstream support, which is we're actively putting features and bells and whistles into products and fixing them and patching them and maintaining them. And then for the second 5 years, we do what's called extended support, which is if you buy a support contract from us, we'll happily wrap our arms around you and love you and give you good stuff. But if you don't want to buy a support contract from us, all you're going to get from us, but it's important, right, is security updates. Okay? And then when products fall out of support, this happens, okay? So why would a third-party vendor start developing products for a product that's no longer in support? So that happens too, okay? Now I'm not going to stand behind this and this thing I'm going to say now, but it's probably true. I would suggest that on the 15th of July 2015, there'll be a bunch of people out there who are the malicious criminals of this world, and they'll start attacking Windows Server, looking for that. They'll be looking for the security holes, they'll be looking for what's the way of ripping all your servers down, and they will. I'm not going to guarantee you that, but I would suggest on the 15th of July, Server 2003 becomes the target for people out there to start attacking, because 50% of the servers are running 2003. Okay? Same for XP. So it's an aside. XP runs out on April something next year, so it's less than a year to go for XP. XP in Ireland has only just dipped below 50%. So 50% of the workstations out there are running an unsupported, as of next year, no security patches OS. And I will guarantee you, I won't guarantee you, but that's the target spot. People out there, the malicious guys, are going to be going after unsupported OSs that are not going to be patched. The date is not going to change. You keep hearing this, you're chatting to someone in the bar and I heard on the internet the other day that we're going to extend, Microsoft going to extend support for God knows another year or two. No, we're not. And one of the reasons we're not, and maybe the video shouldn't be here for this piece, but one of the reasons we're not is Microsoft is Microsoft's biggest competitor. Did you know that? It's just an interesting fact, right? So the fact that people are, it's good enough, it ain't broke, don't fix it, that mentality, that stops people buying the next release of the product because the one I've got is perfect. So we are, weirdly enough, our own biggest competitor, which is kind of strange, okay? So that's the stick, okay? I'm sure I could find a few more sticks, but that's the stick. And the intention of the rest of the 2 days is to give you carrots, okay? And I'll give you ideally reasons to upgrade and reasons to run back to the office and convince your boss that they need to upgrade. Quickly on the product sets and quickly on licensing, and then I'll move on to some technical stuff, okay? What's missing? They are the SKUs, the stock keeping units or the versions of Windows Server. There's a couple that are missing and they're kind of obviously missing, okay? Anyone want to know, anyone obvious ones? From the left, home server's not there. My home server's gone, damn. I loved home server, haven't got it anymore. I've replaced my home server with Essentials, and I'll tell you why in a second. What else is missing? Anyone in the small business world? Small business server is now gone. Small business server is a dead end product. And if you're running small business server 2003, hope we don't know. If you're running 2003, the support date is actually next year. It's because it's when Exchange 2003 runs out. Exchange 2003 runs out in April of 2014. So if you're running small business server 2003, it's even quicker reason to move. If you're running small business server 2003 R2, then it's the Windows date is the problem you've got, okay? Because that's running Exchange 2007, and then you're back to the July 14th of 15, okay? Gone, completely gone. And everyone who's running small business server complains of that. Anyone running small business server? Couple complain, but it was not going to come back. It's not going to come back. It's been replaced with Essentials and the cloud, okay? And maybe some virtualization pieces, which I will or won't talk to as we go through. But they're the SKUs. Well, what else is missing? Enterprise edition. So the product that sat there has disappeared, okay? And I'll explain. But I'll quickly cover these, okay? Foundation server, OEM only. One single server, one processor. You buy the box, the physical piece of tin, and you get Foundation server on it. Gives you 15 users, no requirement for CALs. Can't virtualize it. Can't be a virtualization host. It's basic stuff. It's file and print and a way of getting in remotely. Okay, that's it. Essential server is you buy it You can buy it OEM, you buy it. It's per server, supports 2 processors, up to 25 users, with a caveat, but up to 25 users, no cows requires. Can be virtualized, so you can run it as a virtual machine, but you can't run Hyper-V on it. Again, basic stuff, file print, access to your cloud, nice wizards to connect to things like Office 365. Nice to give you your whole solutions for Exchange and SharePoint and Link. Next, finish. That kind of mentality that's where Small Business Server came from, okay? These two, standard and data center, are technically identical. There is no difference. So they'll all support, I'll get some of this wrong, 512 processors or threads, 4 terabytes of memory, unlimited disk potentially, or they all support failover clustering, 64 nodes in a cluster. They all support, there's no difference. There's technically no difference between the two. Whereas the one that used to sit in there, which was Enterprise Edition, was where you got clustering. So you bought Enterprise because you wanted clustering, or you bought Enterprise because you wanted more scale on the physical box. Just got messy. Boxes and servers you're buying are getting more and more powerful. And then the decision to go standard Enterprise or data center it was confusing. And you might have gone Enterprise today, but tomorrow you want data center, and then what do you do with licenses? Forget all that. They're identical. Okay, so everything you can read there, and we'll cover most of these features as we go through. It's just the licensing thing. Okay, the only difference is the licensing, and I believe I threw a licensing slide up to make sense of it. Okay. If you want to throw questions in, you can throw questions in, but ideally you don't. You might do questions later on. So, the benefit of having Foundation and Essentials, Standard, and Data Center lets you do this. It lets you be the first server for someone who's like one man and a dog, got a couple of laptops and a printer, decides, you know what, I should have a server. I should be backing my PCs up. I need to connect to Exchange Online. I need to become a bit more grown up with, rather than be doing everything at gmail.com or hotmail.com. I want to be professional. I want to come across as a professional company. Go buy your first server, go buy your Foundation or your Essentials server, and do it properly. And then depending on where you want to come in, most people like the idea of virtualization, so 1 or 2 servers, consolidation, save your power, do some nice things, move things around for planned and unplanned downtime. And if you want to start managing that, because the more you virtualize, the more of a management nightmare you get, because you've got more and more servers to manage. Might still be 2 or 3 physical boxes, but now you've got 20 or 30 virtual machines. You probably ought to start managing it, okay? Some nice management stuff in Windows Server, but as you get bigger and more complicated, and you want to start automating stuff, in comes System Center, okay, which we'll get to. All the way up to the biggest customers, okay? So our data centers, I gave you some numbers earlier on, all run in Windows Server 2012, okay? The licensing piece, and someone in this room is smiling at me because every time I try and present this slide, I get it wrong. I don't know licensing, okay? I don't want to know licensing. I don't know pricing. I don't want to know pricing. But I'll have a go at explaining some licensing to you, okay? Which is always funny because I don't know licensing. Data center and standard, technically identical, okay? Technically identical. The only difference is this. It's the virtualization rates. So a license for standard, if you buy one standard server license, it works on 2 processors, okay? You can say get a box with 2 sockets, that's one standard edition. If you've got a box with 4 sockets, you buy 2 standard edition licenses, okay? The standard edition, and technically on that standard box, you can spin up as many VMs as you want to turn on. Technically they're the same, okay? But if you're running a Windows server, it's on, it's doing stuff, you give us a license is basically the way it works, okay? The license for standard lets you, or makes you legal and above board if you're running 2 Windows boxes are now covered under that license. So if you've got standard and you've got 1 standard license, 2 sockets, and you're running 4 or 5 or 6 VMs, 2 of them are covered by the standard license. Make sense? So if let's say you were running 4, I could just assign 2 standard licenses to that box, and now I'm covered for my licenses. And or 5 or 6, now I could apply 3 standard licenses, but financially, you would have probably been better off looking at data center now. So data center and standard, once you get to 2 or 3 standards, you should have, data center makes sense. If you're doing virtualization at scale and you don't know how many VMs you're going to turn on, data center is the answer. Okay, makes sense? So they're both processor and CAL. Each license supports 2 physical sockets, and then you just spin up VMs depending on licensing. For non-Windows OSs, you're covered. If you go buy download the free Hyper-V server, Technically exactly the same as both those two products, but with no licenses at all. So then you'd start thinking about licensing. But my point behind this is if you're virtualizing Windows and you're going to go buy licensing and you want to do it correctly, buy a data center, regardless of the hypervisor you're using. You just buy the licenses, logically assign them to the tin, and you're done. That's your licensing done. But if you're doing Windows and you've just bought Windows Server 2012 licenses, and which comes with all the bells and whistles that you're going to hear over the next day and a half, makes sense to do Hyper-V, I think, is the point behind this, okay? So that was all I'm going to say on licensing, because I'm not a licensing guy. 2 slides on Azure, quickly. Last Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday, the 17th of this month, we went public with our infrastructure services, so IaaS, Infrastructure as a Service on Azure. So Azure has been around for 3 or 4 years. It's been around for a good long while. Most people have heard of Azure, but most people have heard of Azure because it's that thing that developers play with. It's platform as a service. You develop your application and you publish it up to Azure, and Azure does all this scaling out and scaling down and keeps your uptime, and there's a service level agreement in place for Azure. That's what most people have understood about Azure. But with infrastructure as a service, now think similar to Amazon. Now think, run VMs up there. Run your BizTalk servers and your SQL servers and your SharePoint servers, and run whatever you like up there. It's just a platform to run virtual machines on. We've gone public with this, okay? So now you can go to Azure, or Azure, or whatever you like to pronounce it. I say Azure. And you can go to the portal and you can spin up Windows boxes, and you can spin up Linux boxes, and you can spin up SQL boxes and pre-configured SharePoint farms, or whatever you like. Or you can go and get your VM that you've created on Hyper-V and copy it up and run it. This is where do you want to run your workload today concept. So remember I said it's the same virtualization stack, same data stack, same everything stack. You've got movement between these now. So you've got to copy up a whole VM because it's big and complicated, but you can do it, okay? Bandwidth, willing, you'll be able to do. The bandwidth will get better over years, but that's what we've enabled, okay? You can also extend your data center to the cloud by using our virtual network, so Azure Virtual Networking. Just think another office, another subnet you've connected is on your network now, and you can just use it. Okay, so your private addresses, let's say your 192.168.1 dot something, make this one 192.168.2 dot something. That's got a virtual network within Azure. You can all do that, and therefore we'd end up with thousands of 192.168.2 dot whatevers, but we can cope with that, okay? It's yours, it's your network, it's your extension. All there, all working, and we've made a commitment, and we're certainly at the moment anyway, we're cheaper than the competition. So the competition in this space is obviously Amazon, we're cheaper than them. And I imagine we'll do this, we'll keep playing this game, and we'll get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. But lets you do stuff, so there's loads of workloads that we support. And support is an interesting word. Support means we support it. Some of our competition in this space, or certainly in the virtualization space, use the word support to mean it works on our platform. I've got the example that I was mentioning before, these guys. They say they support NT4. We haven't supported NT4 in God knows how long, 10 years? Maybe not quite as long as that, but we don't support something. When we say support, we mean support. Pick the phone up to us and we'll help you, we'll solve the problem. We support Linux workloads on Windows, we support Ubuntu, Red Hat, SUSE, FreeBSD, a bunch of them. We'll go in and debug kernels and all sorts of stuff on Linux boxes. We're currently the biggest contributor to the Linux kernel, which is a weird thing for Microsoft that used to be this very proprietary company to say. We're very much into this sort of open source and open standards play, okay? Manage it all with System Center. Remember I said the management piece was good? Don't care where it is, manage it all. Where is your workload running? Move it from A to B, that kind of idea. We haven't quite got the quick migration or the live migration up to Azure yet, but you can copy the VM up and spin it up, which is nice. I wanted to say that we'd launched this piece as well yet, but we haven't. It's still in a technical preview, which is any day now, hopefully, which is backing up to Azure. So the idea now is you can extend your backup agent of Windows Server backup on Windows Server 2012 Essentials and 2008 R2. Just extend it, and one of the destinations you can back up to is Azure, which is kind of nice. System Center 2012 DPM SP1 also has the ability to back up itself to Azure. So now you've got your data, your important stuff sitting up in the cloud, okay? Useful for lots of things now. Let's say your whole business goes pear-shaped and it's flooded. You can run round the corner to your DR site or go and buy some new machines from somewhere and just restore your data onto them. Okay, nice. Even nicer, spin up some VMs on Windows infrastructure services and restore your data to that. Quite clever. Now Azure has become a DR site for you. Kind of clever, okay? So some nice things happening.